flag waving in front of your face, that you have these sheriffs, they're calling the municipal police on these people.
Yep.
So that lets you know that, again, there is that separation. I mean, that's a perfect example of church and state right there.
Yep.
Right?
Well, the health department, too, told them in Hawaii, they said, we are not the government and we do not have to answer to you.
And they said we're a private organization. I watched them say that, too. I said, look at
we're
that.
A private organization. Yep, we're a private organization. Yep. Well, you know what? We've learned what the, well, we should probably save this for a while. Well, we've learned we've learned what the birth certificate is, and it is a creation of a registered organization. So we are all private organizations, and so they can, we can tell them the same thing.
I mean, we can do all that, but it's better to choose a side. You know what I mean? Choose a side that's gonna save your behind and get you to where you need to go.
Oh, exactly.
That's how
if I may.
Actually, real quick, can we go ahead and introduce the show and do any disclaimers we need to do, because it's that time.
Heck no, I don't want to be recorded tonight at all. Just kidding.
All right, whenever you're ready.
Go ahead. You're good. We're already started.
All right.
This call.
This is Judge D.W., and welcome to the Matrexit discussion group. It is December 18, 2016, 6 p.m. on the East Coast and 4 p.m. on the Mountain the Mountain Time Zone. There we go. I'd like to bring you the Matrexit discussion group with Bryan Parker and our special guest, Tryal Hera. I'm going to turn this over to Bryan. Go ahead, buddy.
Hi, guys. Great to have Tryal with us here this evening, and hope everybody's had a great week. Hope everybody had a great Sabbat yesterday. It's amazing little bits and pieces. We were just talking prior to the call, little bits and pieces and crumbs that the cabal kind of trickles out to us. And it's fun when we really know what's happening and we can sit and really listen to them and really hear what they're trying to say, or maybe they're not trying to say it, but it's just kind of, falling out in bits and pieces anyway. And it gives us great clues as to things that are going on. And we were talking about the YouTube from Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who's on Arizona, was heading up an investigation with Obama's birth certificate, or actually it was a certificate of live birth is what they were looking into and showing. And, I've posted a couple times out there. I just want everybody to know. This has nothing to do with the president, has nothing to do with Obama. The birth certificate issue is something completely different, and that's what people totally miss. And that's actually part of what's gotten everybody into trouble, and they don't even realize it. But anyway, I've listened to plenty of calls on legal deception and calls from redemption and equity as well, and glad to have Tryal Hera with us here this evening. How are you doing, Tryal?
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing okay. How's everybody doing?
I wasn't really sure where you wanted to lead this call off to, or if you had anything pressing on your mind you wanted to discuss, Tryal. I want everybody to realize as well that the information we put out, this has nothing to do with some crazy patriot movement or sovereign citizen movement. Those terms are all names that was given to people by the corporation, and terms that would be used against them eventually and have been. So anyway, with that little disclaimer said, I guess I'll turn back over to Tryal.
Hi. So I want to say a couple of really important things here for folks who may not truly grasp the gravity of what we're dealing with here. It's not just about foreclosure or being incarcerated or those things. It definitely, obviously, it has something to do with it. But the bigger picture here that we're dealing with is we are dealing with a spiritual situation, okay? And I know that some of you can already see that it's a spiritual situation. For those of you who can't see it or don't believe it, I'm going to tell you, and I've said this before, I had an attorney tell me, after getting into a debate with him over the name that he incarcerated someone with, because the name was the wrong name. And the attorney said to me, his body and spirit are bound to that name. Okay? Now, being an attorney, we know that they have the nickname of being devil's advocates. Okay? Essentially what this man is telling me is that they have bound you as far as your body is concerned, your title is concerned, and your spirit is concerned, because these birth certificates originated with the drop of blood from the hospital when you were born. Okay? Blood is a sacred fluid. Most of you already know this. I don't think I have to sit here and remind you. You just innately know it. And so to use that and create a contract and a covenant, I can see how it would bind you. I had a very tough time trying to figure out how they would make something like this stick, a birth certificate, a name, a license, a mortgage, whatever you want to call it. So this is essentially what has been done. Now, I was going through the Vital Statistics Manual maybe a week or two ago. I found it online, and anyone can go dig that up. It says here in their book, it says, for example, to protect against identity theft, it is important to match death with birth certificates and then mark the birth certificate deceased. Okay? So the actual birth certificate, you don't have your actual birth certificate. You have a certified copy of a record of birth. You have a certificate of live birth. You have a true and attested copy of birth record. But that actual birth certificate is sitting somewhere marked deceased in a file. I've managed to find 3 different birth records. They each have a number in the left margin. One of them is, the number 1 was the city where I was born, and that's the clerk's copy. The second one was by the Department of Health, which is the certificate of live birth. And the third one I found, the third copy, it's called a residence copy. And that certificate is in the town or city where your parents lived when you were born, okay? And so this kind of lets you know, hey, when you use 1 or 2 or 3, that very well may depend on how you are treated, okay? If they consider you a resident, if they consider you an alien, if they consider you this, if they consider you that. So back to this vital statistics thing here, when they mark you deceased, they mark that name deceased. And that is where the civil death comes from, okay? Whether it's your mortgage or your license or whatever it is that you do in this dead world, your name will be in all capital letters, which is the same thing that you'll find on a gravestone in a cemetery, okay? Gravestones are in all caps. And so this is where your civil death comes from. This is why, you know, when you go to court, especially over property matters, you get steamrolled over. So I had my authenticated certificate of live birth, and I started going to these offices like, which one of you people in here knows what I need to do with this? You know, and I had gone all over the place, and now here I am at the county. And I walked into the name change office after being directed there, and I'm like, why would I go there? So I go in there, and the clerk sees the authentication in my hand, and she jumps up out of her seat, and she says, is somebody using your name? Did you want to register your name? How did you hear about this? This is a 2-step process, and she just started running down the whole thing to me without me even saying, hi, how you doing, my name is. So it was the first time I had ever engaged with any of these officials that was pretty much happy to see me, okay, and be more than willing to give me the process without giving me headaches and so on and so forth. So she finally convinced me, okay, you need to do a name change to these papers. So I took them home, and I'm looking at them, and they didn't make any sense to me. So I called, I said, I need to do a name change, and I know I need to do a name change, but I don't know what to change my name to. And so she says, well, do you have any paperwork where your name is spelled wrong? And I said, yes, I do. I have this Social Security card here, and it's in all capital letters. And she says, well, that's not right. They need to change that because nobody's name is in all capital letters. Okay? So I'm going to redirect the conversation here just a little bit. Donald Trump is famous for talking about nobody. Okay? Maybe at this point, you folks will go back and start checking out some of Donald Trump's speeches. I know that during the election, he said, nobody has more respect for women than I do. Nobody. Okay, so that was an inside joke because nobody is this dead entity. So he's saying, hey, this dead entity has more respect for women than I do. Okay. You're going to find nobody in Frederick Douglass's quotes. You'll find Mr. Nobody all over the place. There's a movie called Mr. Nobody. So you'll find this nobody character all over the place, including Puff the Magic Dragon, which was a cartoon, I think, in the late 70s, early 80s, where this little boy, he had this imaginary friend called Mr. Nobody, and then Mr. Nobody disappeared, and he went searching for Mr. Nobody, and at the end, he finds out that it was him all the time. So there's these games and tricks and terminology that we're not aware of, and so we kind of get lost in this, essentially, this stripping of everything that we've accumulated, that we've worked for, that has belonged to us, where it's being stripped from us, okay? And we have a choice. We can either, get past the sting, okay, and start focusing on what it is that we're trying to achieve. As it stands right now, there are very few people actually registered as being alive, as existing, okay? We had a friend that went to court, and the judge said to him, there is no registered land anywhere in this county. And what the judge was saying is that there's no registered land, including you. You didn't register either, right? But he didn't fully grasp that at the point. And then the judge also said to him, he said to the judge, he says, well, if I give you this bill of lading, will you go ahead and, settle everything? And the judge says, what is a bill of lading? Okay. Now, I'm going to read to you what bill of lading is. But before I get to that definition, I want to suggest that folks go and listen to who's on first, because that is also an encrypted instruction skit designed as humor, okay? Remember, each of those certificates has a number on it, 1, 2, 3. Who is on first, what is on second, I don't know, is on third, okay? So we have a bill of lading here, and this is in Wikipedia. It says, bills of lading are one of 3 crucial documents used in international trade to ensure that exporters receive payment and importers receive merchandise. The 2 other documents are a policy of insurance and an invoice. Whereas the bill of lading is negotiable, both a policy and invoice are assignable. So the blue certificate is the second one, so we know what is on second, and what did the judge say? What is a bill of lading, right? So we know that number 2, blue certificate of live birth, is considered what in their little game world, and we know that that is the bill of lading because that is on security paper and that is negotiable. The other 2 certificates, one is a policy and the other is an invoice. Haven't quite figured out which one is which at this point, but they are all used for international trade. So the point being, I guess what I'm trying to say is that when it comes down to the name change, you cannot get your anything from these people when you are running around with this dead name. okay? You'll find the name change in the Trading with the Enemy Act. What did the Bill of Lading say? It's used for international trade. Okay, when you go get your authentication, you have to choose a country outside the Hague. That's international. Okay, are we trying to enter as nationals? So there's a lot of word trickery, a lot of game playing going on, and a lot of it, they call them tests. There's a religious test. There's a few other tests that they call them, but as you dig along, you'll find that some of these are tests, including cruel and unusual punishment. Okay, that's also a test. So they're constantly putting you through these little hurdles until you learn, and you finally make it to your goal. And that is what we're dealing with. And when I say that this is a spiritual thing, I'm going to tell you that just this year alone, I have dealt with more spiritual activity than I've ever known in my life. And I'm not going to go into the details, but what I will say is if this is one of those situations, and it looks like it, that these people have a piece of your spirit locked away in a drawer somewhere, okay, it is of grave importance right now to figure out how to go claim that. That's what I got to say about that.
No, I totally agree with you. There's, everybody knows that when a child is born, they're basically looking at this child as a bastard child or a foundling child, and there's no father. No father's come forward and made a claim. Everything's about making claims. It's it's a commerce world,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody's made a claim. So then they decide, okay, the state's going to step in and they're going to be the ones administering the estate until somebody comes back to claim it. Until somebody steps forward. That's what people need to do, is take that step forward. And that's part of taking responsibility and due diligence for your life. And everybody thinks it's just so much to, just let let the status quo continue as long as everything's okay and I'm happy and I get to watch my games and, go have fun doing whatever, but nobody really wants to say, hey, we are really supposed to be stepping forward and taking responsibility for this situation, and nobody's done it. And that's, I think, the reason why everybody finds themselves in so much trouble, so many headaches.
Well, I mean, it has to affect you first. It has to affect you enough to be forced into action at this point. Something has to affect you personally. You have to experience something that you can't explain, or see something that you can't explain for you to start asking questions like, okay, what's really going on here? With the names, I was checking out some information in alchemy, and it was talking about the equal exchange of one thing for another thing of the same weight, right? And so even in alchemy and magical principles, this is what's been done. These names have been switched and swapped. They took your name and they gave you this name. It balances. Until we're at the point where it doesn't balance anymore because we're suffering and we're hurting from it.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And a lot of times, too, when we're talking about name change, a lot of people sit back and they think, well, I kind of like the name I've been using most of my life. I think the majority of people do anyway. And they're like, well, what am I going to change my name to? And it's actually, I think, way more simple than that. And that is, like you said, equal exchange. They took one thing and gave you something else, but they used the old glossa trick on us and went and gave everybody this block style letter, of naming, of lettering, of spelling, casting spells or whatever, and everybody's kind of run with that. And a lot of people, had even their certificate of live birth or birth certificates, put in that same block style lettering, the capitalization. And so and then they're also told, this is not identification, not to be used for identification, but it can be. You go to the Department of Motor Vehicles, and that's one of the things on their list that can be used, and people go ahead and use it. Since they find themselves operating in the capacity of this fictional character and don't realize it. I think that's probably down inside, people don't realize that's a big chunk of this whole, not just identity theft, but they talk about teenagers growing up and needing to learn who they are and find out who they are and stuff like that. And to me, that's part of it. They've stolen your identity away from you, and they've given you something else that doesn't feel natural. And
right.
I've heard a lot of people talk, too, about going in to have the name change done, and the judges, or a court administrator, rather, saying, but that is your name. Because I'm talking about the name change. I'm talking about changing it from that block style and putting it back into its natural form. Taking it from the capitis diminution maxima back down to capitis diminution minima and putting it in the lower case. And so I would recommend to people that, because I've sat in court a few times myself and seen attorneys request something of a judge, and the judge grant it, and then just say, well, can you get that order written out to me today so I can sign it? And the attorney's like, oh, yeah, sure. And I'm thinking, wouldn't it be smarter of us when we go in for this, already have an order written up that says, yeah, this is my name, but it's not the capitalization name, it's the lowercase name. And if the judge is going to say, but that is your name, there's no reason to change it, say, okay, well, here you are, just sign this then.
But it's not all lowercase. It's upper, lower.
Right, the first letter being the upper, exactly. That's what I use.
Right. Because and be careful, because some people have, I'm going to do it in all lowercase, and then they do it in all lowercase, and they realize that they've done nothing. Because the name that you're changing it to is that name on that certificate, the upper, lower name. Because what you're doing is you're taking possession of that name where it was before it was abandoned. And now you're taking possession. And I'm going to tell you something else. Even with this kind of stuff, you're going to find these spiritual terms in there. Article 9, when they talk about security interests, okay, and this is what we're doing, we're grabbing the security. They're telling you in order to perfect it, you have to have possession, attachment, or control. If you've ever seen anyone with some severe spiritual problems, you'll notice that there's some type of attachment that's taken possession and has control of this person. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. I've noticed that.
And I'm going to tell you something else. I found this, and I'll get the source for you guys. I found this it was like a 1917 encyclopedia, okay? And it's talking about pronunciation of the name. Now, when you're in court and they have a hearing, they're looking for the sound of that name, okay? So they're always looking for the sound. So even if, you're all cap upper lip and you sit there and argue with them, they're like, wait a minute, no, is this your name? Is this the name? So, pronunciation of names. It says, the pronunciation of the name has effects regarding it as irresistible, and by pronunciation is meant, at least primitively, the declamation, with chanted intonations, rhythm, and melopedia. The force of this pronunciation is the same for men, inanimate beings, visible or invisible, spirits, genii, demons, gods, spirits animating things apparently inanimate, etc. For the weakest as well as for the strongest. Spirit raising, exorcism, possession, sorcery, and oaths, in all their infinite variety, are based upon this imperious handling of names. The chief operations of primitive magic religion and black magic rests above all on the knowledge and pronunciation of the names which they claim to attract, subject, or obtain in an amicable or hostile manner. Commands of a man to the beings or forces of this world cannot be imagined without the pronunciation of their name. Properly addressed, these beings cannot escape from the order given them. If spirits and the dead are subdued by the calling of their names, why be surprised at the idea that one may cause a man's death by taking away his name, or by incorporating it by sorcery with a substance that is to be destroyed?
Wow.
Now tell me that's not some serious stuff we're dealing with.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right? So this name change, people don't understand, and they want to argue, and they want to fight, and this and that. And I'm like, you know what? Don't do it. If you don't want to do it, fine. It doesn't, one way or the other, the people who are supposed to go in there and the people who are supposed to get their names back will get it done with or without you. And the only one who's going to hurt from it is you. And I'm not saying that to try to dig my claws into people. I'm saying that because I don't have the time to sit here and convince you that this is what you need to do. I've seen enough to know how important it is.
You know, that's an important thing. That's an important thing too. Is, I mean, even in like the comments of posts and stuff, there's people that want to argue and everything, and I finally just come out and say, listen, you know, people like myself and others, I know you've experienced as well. We're not here to convince anybody. We're just sharing you the info that we're finding.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. It's that simple. If this isn't your path, that's fine. See you next round. You know, and I'm not saying that to be cold, and I feel like I want to keep narrating and telling you why I'm saying something or why I'm not saying something, and I'm going to stop doing that because the simple fact is this. Every single county that every single one of you folks live in that are listening has a name change department. Now, the county where you were born is where the power is. Okay? And there's other tricks and there's other pieces to that, but the piece that I just read to you, I think it's on the website in the slides, and all of the webinar shows that I did have the slides right there. So even if you don't want to get the show and you're whatever, the slides that I used are there freely downloadable on PowerPoint, and you can pull them down and go through them yourself.
Yep, and I've posted those up several times also on Tactical Sovereignty. People can just use the search bar, you know, look up, you know, keywords like webinar or Tryal Hera or name change, and they should pop up.
Cool, thank you. I mean, it's there for everyone. You know, if you stumble across it or if you're curious or you have questions or whatever, it's there. And now here's something else that I've noticed being on this side. I've noticed that a lot of the well, not a lot, but a good chunk of the men who are inquiring about the name change have changed their names completely to something else, thinking that a nationality or some type of abbreviation attached to their name is going to give them this magical protection. And what's being done is they are moving away from their lineage, their family name, their their ancestry, whatever that ancestry is, okay? And some of them are finding that they have to go and change it back. You know, you should be, if you're going to do this name change, your name should be changed from the capital version to the upper lower of the original recording of the event or registration of the event.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. Vital statistics is the civil registry that folks are looking for. We've got about 5 folks in California now, and they spoke to the vital statistics, and the vital statistics said, okay, you have the decree, great. We're going to send you an amendment form. This is the second amendment or second coming because all of this is biblical, okay? Everything that they do is by the Bible, depending on which position they're playing. All right? This isn't me pulling scriptures out of the air. This is them confirming that they operate based upon the Bible. So this amendment that's coming for this family, they said, yeah, just fill out the amendment forms and give it to us, and we'll give you back the certificate attached to another certificate, and you're done. The problem is that there's no one is on these registries, these civil registries. No one's there. You know, most of you know who She-Wolf is. She's awesome. I love her to death. She had a conversation, I think it was with the Attorney General, and she's like, you know, you've got all this money and all of these funds here. And the woman says, well, what do you want me to do about it? And She-Wolf says, give it back to the people. And the woman says, I can't. We can't find them. They can't find you.
And you know, when she said that they can't find them, I don't think it's necessarily a matter of they don't have the ability to find them or anything like that. It's that they're not there to be found.
Right. They're not in any of the registries. The certificates of copies of all this nonsense is there. Right? But there's no owner. There's no one that's shown up and said, hey, hi, here I am. I got something interesting. I got this letter 3 months after one of my children were born, and I couldn't read it, but I knew it was important, so I saved it. Well, I can read it now. And this is what it says. This is 3 months after my baby was born. It says, I am writing you, this is from the hospital, by the way, birth registrar in the hospital. It says, I am writing in regards to your child's birth certificate, which has not been completed to this date. Now, I had already filled out all the papers, okay? It says, the birth certificate should be completed on a timely basis in order that your child may be registered with the state, lowercase state, it says. And then it says, it will be forwarded to City Hall, City Clerk's office, and will sit in a pending queue until you go there and complete it. A Social Security card will also not be issued until the birth certificate is complete. How do we complete something that doesn't have all the pieces? Once we get all the pieces, what do? We amend it. So again, I'm going to go back to Donald Trump because he's one of my favorite big mouths. He and Hillary were going back and forth on this presidential debate about the Second Amendment. You can go look it up on YouTube, Hillary, Trump, Second Amendment, and you're going to sit there, you're going to see that they're not talking about guns per se. They'll throw the hypnotic suggestion out there in regards to guns, okay? But the civil people, Americans are unarmed, okay? So for them to sit here and have this conversation, I was like, they're saying something else. What are they saying? What are they saying? What are they saying? What are they saying? And I found it under the Vital Statistics Amendment. So you came in, they made you dead, you go back, and you say, hey, here, I'm alive, now I have the name, and now you go back in and you say, unkill me, here's my papers, and they amend the record for you. Now, of course, you have to accept the name, too. Now, in some states, you have to do the adoption right behind it. So we had a guy that was in Texas, and he was just kind of sitting there watching the name changes and stuff go through and observing. And some young guy goes up, and, you know, the judge is like, oh, you're from this law school, blah, 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 one of those brotherhood things. And the guy's like, yeah, I'm here to do my name change. And the judge says, well, you don't have to tell me why. And then the young guy says, oh, I'm doing it because for an adoption. And the judge says, no, you don't have to tell me why. So name change and adoption are in the same office in my county. Adoption in this case would be an acceptance. Now, there are other states that don't require that. So, you know, once you start going along on this path, you're going to have to engage with these clerks. You're going to have to engage with these people. They're going to throw shadow of a doubt back at you. Are you sure you want to do this? You know, everybody else's name is in all capital letters. You know what I mean? And it took me 3 times to get my name changed to go through.
Wow.
You know? Yeah. So, so neither you or your children are located on the birth registry. Now, the woman in Vital Statistics, very wonderful, magnificent woman. She told me, your name is that the name is already established here. We just need an amendment. And the only way we'll do an amendment is if there's an adoption. I said, aha. She said being an American is a choice. Okay. So, you know, you can start talking to these officials. Start calling their offices, asking them questions. Show up. You know, hi, how you doing? You know, what's your name? Hi, my name is blah, blah. Be careful of the name game, too, because they'll take your name and you walk out of there with no names. I had a clerk. We were talking to one of the clerks, and she kind of had a nasty disposition. And so we're sitting there, and she was uncomfortable, and she says, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. I said, that's because I didn't give you my name. And I picked up her card, and I said, is this your name? And she almost jumped over the table. She was like, give me back my name. I'm like, damn, is it that serious? So that goes back to the true name. I'll have to dig that out. I think that's a screenshot. The true name, they have this in Wikipedia, talking about the true names here. Let me just look for it.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was going to say. You can go on Google and look up true name. There's information regarding what true name is.
Oh yeah, it's yeah, I'm probably going to do exactly what you suggested because I can't find it in my stuff.
One of the fun things that I started doing in my journey is, you know, I've got kind of a creative mind, and I'm an artist, things like that. So, yeah, I always have different thoughts running through my head and different things pop in. So I just started saying, you know what, I'm going to start Googling some of these thoughts I have. You know what I mean? So when you have just weird little questions or stuff like that come to you, they're coming to you for a reason. You know, go to your favorite search me engine and look them up. Because guess what? Somebody's trying to let you know, hey, maybe you want to look into this, you know? And that's where you really start finding incredible info. It's like it's all been in us all along, but we've just never taken a point to investigate it.
Absolutely. So I found the true name, and I found this under folklore on Wikipedia. And again, this is where we start getting into the spiritual stuff that people don't think exists. Listen, these people deal in this stuff, okay? According to practices in folklore, knowledge of a true name allows one to affect another person or being magically. It is stated that knowing someone or something's true name therefore gives the person who knows the true name power over them. This effect is used in many tales, such as in the German fairy tale of Rumpelstiltskin. Within Rumpelstiltskin and all of its variants, the girl can free herself from the power of a supernatural helper who demands her child by learning its name.
Wow.
Okay, now here's some wild stuff. I went to one of the local courts, and I was just poking around in there, and they had this massive poster of all of these new attorneys that were taking the bar exam. And all of the attorneys that were taking the bar exam on there, all of their names were all the true name, which is the last name first name, last middle. And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, oh, my God. Because what does it say? If someone has knowledge of the true name, it gives them power over you. So the people who enter the bar, and we know that they're called the devil's advocates, what are we dealing with here? These people gave their true names to the Bar Association. And the Bar Association operates and controls them in their movement. This is why they're cold and nasty and steal your stuff and steal your house and do all these things, because it's their job. Not only that, but they have a protection. where is our protection? Where is our true name being held? Because if we know just by dealing with these people that they're the opposition, right? And we know that their true names are given to the bar, then who has our true names? The county where you were born has that file. And you need to go in there and get it.
What would you say to people that don't live near their county of nativity? Can they just put in a FOIA to their county where they were born?
Start making phone calls. Why sit there and wait for the mail 4 days? or wait for a week? You know what I mean? Wait a week and a half to get a piece of mail back that you're sitting there biting your nails over. Make a phone call. Call them and be like, listen, I just realized that I didn't register my name, or my parents didn't register my name. You know, how do I go about doing that? If I need to do a name change, what do I need to send you? You know? And they'll tell you. Listen, these people sit here and answer phones all day. They're not going to be on their guard, you know what I mean, worrying about, am I going to say the wrong thing to the wrong person? They want to get you your answer and get you off the phone because the phone is ringing on another line.
Now, you know, one of the things I wanted to ask you about as well, and one of the things that I'm doing, and that is when you look into, like, the definition of the counter deed and what you're actually doing, once you have that name and once you have that authenticated record back, what I'm doing is going and putting that onto the record for them, you know, and submitting it as the counter deed. You know,
well,
you guys don't get to make attachments anymore because now this estate is being administered.
Well, this is the issue, is that we're looking for the name to be registered on the civil registry. So if you want to record it and give notice that way and they'll accept it, that's fine, but you're still going to need to be put in that civil registry. They've narrowed it down to the point where the things that used to work 5 years ago don't work anymore. The things that used to work 2 years ago don't work anymore. The things that worked 6 months ago don't work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know? They've made it so that it's funneling. It's funneling into a small nozzle. So it's best if you're going to do anything, it's best to call them. And you know, and hey, listen, ma'am, I'm trying to understand what you're saying. I'm having a tough time. Do you have a statute or a rule that you can direct me to, and write it down and study it and break it apart?
Yeah, I think their little game is nearing an end. I think they're realizing that. There's a lot of things that people were able to do at one time that they're making more and more difficult now. In different states are going and they're marrying the long and short form birth certificate together, making it impossible for people to get, and giving people a runaround. I think they know that the people have started to wake up and are onto their game.
Absolutely.
I mean, even giving public notice, you know, years ago, it used to be essentially like a billboard outside of the courthouse, or, you know, something that you might find under glass in the entryway, you know, to a courthouse or something like that. And now it's like, well, where are they putting these public notices that you don't see it anymore, you know?
Right.
Or they maybe look at paper. You know,
right.
it might be stuck on the entrance to a bathroom somewhere in a courthouse or a broom closet. Who knows?
Yep.
But, you know, and it's funny, I don't know if it was one of your calls or somebody I was talking to or whatever, but they were talking about dealing with one of the public servants who requested their name. And they're like, really, you want me to give you my name?
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, if I give you my name, I said, then what am I going to use? You know?
Interesting.
You just got to use their little games right back on them.
Yeah. Or make sure you take their, make sure at least, right, because you're always playing this name game, okay? Get their name.
Yep.
This is all one universal language with different dialects, and I've said that before, and I think that sometimes folks have a different time understanding what I'm saying, but, you know, if you look at baseball, right, you got to hit 3 plates before you get home, right?
Yep.
If you're playing football, you've got to grab the ball, run with it, and then touch down. You know, so it's in everything. But it does narrow down to the name. I'll never forget that lady, her face when she was like, "Give me back my name." I'm like, "Whoa, okay, good to know." Good to know.
Hey, yeah, you know, you're absolutely right. You know, talking about the 3s, and I had somebody bring that up to me. Well, I have people bring it up to me all the time if they notice it. They're like, "What do you think?" It's like, you know, it's completely obvious. You know, even the numbering system has run a pattern. It runs a pattern biblically. It runs a pattern spiritually. You know, your trust is set up in 3s. You got your grantor, your beneficiary, and the trustee. You know, so many things. Your T plus 3. People can look that up. I mean, so many things they do are all based on numbers. Like with the number 12, I was talking to the gatekeeper about that earlier today. You know, we've got the 12 Federal Reserve branches. We have the 12 disciples. We got the 12 months of the year. I mean, there's so many 12s even. And I think it's just fascinating when we realize that. It's like you start seeing it all the time in things. It's, it's like the saying about the guy that owned the yellow VW Bug. You know, he had never seen another yellow VW Bug until he owned one. Then all of a sudden he started seeing them everywhere.
Right. Yeah. There's definitely lots to see as you go along in this journey. You know.
And the sad thing is, everybody's eyes have been deflected. You know, they've kind of played a game of rope-a-dope with us, where it's like, you know, look over here at the right hand. While the right hand's doing something, we're going to be stabbing in the back with the left hand. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And they've had everybody focusing all their attention on all the shiny little objects, while in the meantime they're running a game on everybody behind their back.
Yeah, I mean, you got to understand, right? These geniuses that are out here, they end up in media or they end up in radio. They end up. Done? You know, they end up at the top of the pyramid. And so we're sitting here in front of this TV watching top of the line hypnosis.
Absolutely, you know? Absolutely. I mean, even the TV, the way televisions are set up, it's set up to put your brain into a different state of consciousness, or unconsciousness, rather.
Absolutely. I had a friend who her mom had this massive plasma TV. So I sat down in front of it, and I must have been maybe 8 feet away from the TV, and I could feel my face like frying. I was like, I can't sit in front of this TV and watch this. I'm frying. And they're looking at me like I'm crazy, and I'm looking at them like they're crazy. Like, how long have you been frying your face for? You know?
Yep. I'll sit in the break room at work, and we've got a TV in there, and there might be anywhere from 3 to 15 people in there on break at a time. And they'll have the TV on, and I'll look around, and I'll look at everybody, and they're just staring like they're mesmerized, you know?
Yeah, sad. It is sad.
I haven't turned on a TV in a couple of years now, probably, and I think it's probably the best thing I ever did was get that thing off, turn that thing off, you know?
Yep.
Even if it's just on in a room while you're doing something, and it's kind of crazy to take this conversation that direction, but, I mean, even if a TV is just on in a room where you're at while you're doing something else, you're going to hear something or whatever that gets your attention, and next thing you know, it's been 45 minutes and you've been glued to watching this, and you can't really even recall exactly everything that you've been viewing, you know.
I'll tell you, the one thing I do like to watch is Donald Trump. Because he tells you everything.
Yeah. I loved when Hillary tried to throw in his face about his taxes and that he hasn't paid taxes. And he spoke right up and he said, no, you know what that makes me? That makes me smart. So he's telling everybody, hey, I know something you all don't know.
Well,
Maybe you want to listen to me.
Yeah. He's like, I'm a businessman. He's not a politician. He's a businessman. Why? Because it's a corporation.
Yep.
Here's an interesting thing, though. If you look him up, Donald J. Trump, you'll find that his name is written 3 different ways on Wikipedia. But I wanted to say something really quickly. This is talking about establishing a delayed record in Massachusetts. And here's something interesting at the bottom. It says, note, if both the bride and groom are deceased, an order from the probate court in Massachusetts is necessary to establish the record. Here's another one about establishing a delayed record of birth, delayed, okay, mislaid, what do they call it, lost, mislaid, and abandoned property.
Yep.
And then at the bottom it says, note, if an individual has been dead for more than 5 years, an order from the Massachusetts probate court is necessary to establish the record. Okay?
What do you think the key words are in there? I mean, I hear establish. Establish sends off alarm bells to me.
That's a big one. That's a big one because Vital Statistics is the one who does the establishing. But it's basically saying if an individual has been dead for more than 5 years. And it's also saying if the bride and groom are deceased. What did they do?
Yeah.
They took all the certificates and marked them all dead. In their manual, it says that they took them, they matched them, and they put all the birth certificates deceased. You're a decedent. You're considered a decedent. You are civilly dead, and this is why when they go after your house, the sheriff comes out because the sheriff doubles as a coroner. That's one of the hats that he wears. And if your name is not on that county, or the county record, or the global record, then you are considered dead, and they're going to come and get your stuff because you have no civil rights. Now, the powerful thing about probate is that probate is under the legislature, and that is the sovereign power above the Constitution. So you have judicial, executive, and legislative.
Yep.
These are all the things that people need to, if they're curious about it or they want to do it or they have done it and they're still kind of fumbling around looking, go digging into the legislature. They have acts, I believe, ACTS, and there are probably some crumbs in the Bible under the Acts book that you can use. The Bible is an encrypted instruction manual. All the stuff that we're going through right now, all of the officials, all of the characters in the game are here right now, and the instructions are in that book. I had one of the guys at the post office, I think he was either the superintendent or he had a higher position. He smiled and he goes, I'm kind of like Solomon.
Yes,
I said,
indeed.
Okay. I said, mental note.
Yeah, whenever you're trying to, and people don't realize, I think, that everything that's going on right now around us is so much bigger. It's so huge that if they really got the concept of it, they'd probably be floored. They really would. But
Absolutely.
and like you talked about the scripture being basically a user manual, okay, is that when you're trying to explain something to somebody that has like no clue about what you're talking about, you're going to go and simplify it and put it into terms and things that they're going to comprehend much easier. And that's exactly, I believe, what the scriptures did as well. I mean, you would use metaphors and you would use similes to describe something, and may I say, you would use parables.
Yep.
So, and when we stand back and kind of look at things and look at the events that happened in Scripture, and whether it was Abraham. Okay, don't look at Abraham, the man, the sheep herder that the Scripture makes him look like. You need to step back and see the bigger picture for what's really going on. Like when I talked about Abraham going and taking a group of like 200 or 300 men to go fight in a situation. Well, I'm sorry. Is your simple sheep herder have the authority and ability to round up 200 or 300 men to go wage a battle on something? No. Look at the bigger picture. Abraham wasn't just a little lonely sheep herder.
No, I mean, but he could have been. We're talking about in parables, but if we want to look at them as actual people that live, we could say, okay, this guy knew what was going on, and he happened to be a sheep herder, but he went out and he started talking to people, and he got 300 people to go out there and do what they needed to do. Maybe. I mean, we could be talking about derivatives. There could be 300 names out there that we don't know about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and it could be all of those things because it's in all of the languages, whether it's financial, or even in energy terms. They're talking about they're looking for the Ark of the Covenant. Well, the covenant is a contract, and that first covenant that they got you, it'll tell you in the Bible, they got you in the first covenant, and that covenant is that blood covenant when they took the baby's blood out of his butt. And I think it was Job talking about a snare shall be laid, and they'll grab him by the ankle. Well, didn't they poke the baby's, heel, or they'll grab him by the heel, excuse me. Didn't they poke the baby's heel and take the blood out and put on a little piece of paper and run off and you never saw it again?
Yep, absolutely. That was their claim. That was their claim right there.
And the serpent in the Bible, the serpent came to the woman, right? Who's the serpent? What does the hospital have as a symbol? Every hospital that you know, what does it have? It's got the sheets on it, right? With the serpent crawling up the pole, with the wings. And the ambulances have it. There's your serpent right from the beginning. He came to her in the garden and was like, "Look, lady, don't worry about this. Go ahead and sign this paper." Okay, well, now I ate. And now I took the fruit. What is Boris always saying? Usufruct. Whoever uses the fruit is fucked, right?
Yep.
Okay? So what happened? And then the serpent turned around, or God, or someone turned around and was like, because you've done this, you're going to get X, Y, Z. This is what happens to you, and you get kicked out of the garden. Bye. Mm-hmm. And what's happened ever since? Everyone's been struggling, trying to run around and figure everything out.
Yeah, that symbol is everywhere. You're talking about the serpent. Even when you write down a dollar amount, you see that on your checks. That symbol's right there. It's that S with the line through it. It's that snake on a pole that Moses was holding up out in the desert. Yeah. Well,
that's right. The staff with the serpent. The hospital staff.
Yeah. Everybody's running around searching for the Ark of the Covenant or the Holy Grail, and yet, you know what? It's possibly right here in front of us the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was looking up registration in Wikipedia, but this one was under an organ. And it was talking about the different keys that would be flipped on and others would be flipped off. And if you got the right combination right, then they would all be flipped on. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, this is the same language. They're just talking about an organ and a musical term. You'll find it in chemistry. Like you'll find this language in everything. It just narrows down to what you can understand. So for instance, when you were in school, you had art, you had music, you had gym, you had history, you had math, you had spelling. Some of them you excelled at, some of them you failed at. The ones that you excelled at are the language that you understand. So if you were a jock and you understood football and you ate and slept and everything football, the instructions are in the football game, the strategies. And I realized that as I was going along in life, and I'm like, okay, I can explain it this way, but the person doesn't understand. How can I communicate with them so that we can understand, even though we're not speaking the same language? And I started to have to look around me and learn that, okay, this isn't everything. If the person understands whatever language, if they're into plants, the language is in the plants too. It's in chemistry. You know, you just apply it to what you understand.
Well, and it is in everything as well, because if people really comprehended, you know, we're told that, for instance, God, Yahuwah, whatever, the creator, whatever name you want to use, is within us. Well, you know, it's not just he's within us, he's within everything. He's within the wind that's blowing, he's within that blade of grass. All of these things are all made up of the same essential elements, you know, and he lays at the core of all of those things. And it all really comes down also, if people want to study vibrations, it comes down to vibrations. Everything is a vibration. Grass is the color green because that is the color that that vibration produces. And I mean, that's off topic, kind of, but I mean, it gets very deep if people want to study vibration.
Absolutely. And right now, the majority of the people are vibrating at the level of a cheeseburger. And when but when I say cheeseburger, I'm not just talking about the ones at McDonald's. I'm talking about being used as a source of food.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your food is the food is not as nutritious, but even then, okay, your immune system isn't operating the way it should be operating, because if it was operating the way it should be operating, you would really be in for some treats at the things that you see in this world.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was listening to a scientist the other day talking, and he had been doing stem cell research. And he said, you know, people think this is something new. He said, no, it's not. He says, I was doing this back in 1967. I was doing stem cell research. And he said his job basically was looking at genes, and they were working on gene modification. And we've all been taught that we are a product of our genes, which, you know, number one, that puts us in a defensive position. Oh, I'm hopeless, I'm helpless, there's nothing I can do, this is what I'm stuck with, these were the genes that were given me, da-da-da. He says, you know, that information is totally false. It's been fed to us, because when he was working with genes, he would take genes out of one environment, a petri dish, if you will, and he would put it in another one, maybe a less healthy environment. And he said those genes would modify to be able to combat that environment that they were in. And he would take those and put them in a totally separate environment that was totally different. And they would develop other traits to be able to take care of the environment that they were in. And he says, so what that told him was that, you know what, we are not necessarily stuck with our genes, but we are a product of our environment. It's the environment that we place ourselves in and subject our mind to that actually dictates who we are and what we are. And we've been conned this whole time into thinking a certain way or believing certain things are a certain way. And, you know, how many times have we heard, well, that's just the way it is? Well, you know what? There is no such thing as that's just the way it is. Things are the way they are because we allow them to be that way. We put on, I mean, we're told to put on new eyes, right? Think with a new mind. How many people are doing that? Or are we still using what we were stuck with, you know, from our upbringing and from the product that we've subjected ourselves to?
Here's something, too, though. A lot of it, I think, is trauma, okay? When you're traumatized, you are easily led. And so if you're going through life, and, you know, a good chunk of us we're going through this life and we're trying to find our way. And, you know, all of these crazy things are happening throughout our lifetime, and we're traumatized by it. You know what I'm saying? And we're getting hammered with the news. Oh, my God, this terrible thing happened over here. And, oh, you know, and then you're surrounded by people. Oh, did you hear about this awful thing here? Did you hear about this awful thing here? And it's constant trauma, constant trauma. Now, in my experience, what I do is I take, it's called Silver Biotics, okay? And it's a colloidal silver, and I swear by this stuff. I call it God in a bottle. Before I even knew what was going on, I was using this stuff, and I think that's what helped me turn my lights on. The silver will help you decalcify your pineal gland, which will enable you to essentially help you wake up to whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing. It will give you, it will help your cells, the cells that are not doing so well, or the cells that are dormant and not functioning at all, or the way they're supposed to be functioning. It will help ignite those cells, okay? Your immune system is super important, especially at these end times that we're going through right now. Your immune system, your health, the way you function, the way you deal with the stuff, the way you navigate through the stuff. And if this is a spiritual battle, which it does look like it is, and I've had to struggle with myself for a long time to even accept that. But if it is, in fact, a spiritual battle that we're all tangled up in, then you're going to need a spiritual set of eyes. You're going to need your whatever it is that ignites you, whatever it is that sparks you deep down inside. You're going to need that.
And that pineal gland is very important in that aspect.
Yes, it is.
I had situation happen to me. I've had it happen throughout my life, and I just never really thought too much about it. But here a few months ago, I take different supplements. I do Ormus now and then, stuff like that, right? And I was just laying down just to kind of meditate in my bedroom, and I was getting into that, that in-between state between sleep and being totally conscious,
Yeah.
And I was just kind of playing around in that state. And while I was in that state, I heard something that sounded like, and you were talking about ignite, which is what made me think of this. I heard something that sounded like lightning that struck just outside my bedroom window. And it was enough to snap me out of the state that I was in. I was like, holy smokes, what was that? And I remember experiencing that before, so I was, okay, let me go research. What was it? It was my pineal gland, is what it was. Yes,
meditation, and I was going to suggest meditation, but like I said, this is a lot of information to dump on a lot of people. And so I'm trying to not go too far to the left, too far to the right, but while we're on the subject, yes, meditation is a huge piece of this. With the silver and the meditation, I have been able to access understanding. And in that understanding is what helps me navigate my way through this and then come back and report to everyone what I can find. Because I know it's not just me out here doing this. I know there's other people out here, that are going through like immense suffering, and I've made it my business to come back and tell people what I know. And meditation will bring you, let me back up just for a second and then I'll circle back around. Wherever we came from, because it would be an ignorant thought to say, oh, we were just born here and we're going to have our life here and then we're going to be gone and we're not going to exist. That's just silliness, I think. Wherever we came from before we came here, my thinking is, because this world is essentially a free will world, you would have to willingly come in here in the first place. And that's just my thought. If that is the case, then you came down here or to here or by here, whatever the heck this is, you came here with a purpose. And once you came into the world through your mother, you were rerouted into another contract by the use of your sacred fluid. Okay? These people know that you have a spirit. They know that there's a soul involved. I know they know. The point is that even while you're going through all this stuff, there still is a previous agreement. And I'm going to tell you something that I've learned the hard way. When you have an agreement with your higher creator or whatever it is, or you accept that job, whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing, that you can't just undo it. You can't just say, oh, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm just going to go and work at Wendy's and to hell with everything. You're not allowed to do that. So once you're on this path, that's it. And meditation will help you remember, because again, a lot of our memories are gone. We've been traumatized. We forget. We're juggling all of these 50,000 tasks, and to the point where we forget why the hell we came here. Everyone has a piece of the puzzle. Everyone has a purpose. Everyone has something. So yes, I definitely say hats off to meditation.
Yeah, you were talking about traumatization a little bit earlier too, and talking about the different things people see, whether it's on TV or in the newspaper, that this catastrophe's happened or that's going on. And it's true. I think people are kept in a state of traumatization, and they're kept in a state essentially, well, because there's only two real emotions. There's love and there's fear. Okay?
That's correct.
And that traumatization falls into the fear category. And as long as they can keep everybody in a state of fear, well, guess what? When you're in fear, you're looking for what's going to protect me. Where's my savior at? Where's the knight in shining armor, or whatever the case may be in your situation that you look for. And that's what power needs. Power needs something that's going to be always looking to it, for it to be able to take care of them, to rule over them. And the people of America have fallen into this category of statism, which is probably the worst religion, And they look for the state. Oh, you guys got to do this. You guys got to do that. Oh, well, we need to raise taxes. Okay. You know what I mean? And we look to them for everything. Well, we think more about the state every day. Like I've said before, we think more about the state than we think about our Creator. You just simply even going to the grocery store. How many times going to the grocery store do you think about the state compared to your Creator? You get in the car, you put on your seatbelt, you're looking at the road signs, the speed limit signs and the stop signs, and you're constantly thinking state. You know what I mean? And we've been tricked into replacing the Creator at that position in the trust with the state. And I want to digress just for a second when we're talking about the name change and people listening and paying attention. The few times I've been in court, I don't like sit and wait for my name to be called or whatever the case may be. I'd sit and listen to what the judge is saying in every little situation. And somebody was mentioning something about a name change. And the court administrator, and people need to remember, administrators only take care of estates, and estates are dead things, all right? But the court administrator, the judge, said to them, there would be no problem with the name change just as long as you don't have any judgments against you pending right now. And to me, that was like another alarm bell went off in my head. I'm like, oh, really? So if anybody thinks that, the name change doesn't make any big deal or anything like that, yeah, it does. At least it sure does for that court administrator.
Absolutely. I had 2 warrants in an open case when I got my name change done.
Wow. Well, Tryal, we've got a few people on the call and a few people listening on the live Facebook feed as well. Did you want to take some Q&A? I'm sure there's always people that have questions or statements they want to make or whatever the case may be. All right. Sure. I think the board is unmuted, I believe. If anybody wants to pipe in. Hey, how are you doing? Okay. I thought we had an entity coming in there. Maybe not. If you are muted out, you can unmute your phone, or you use ***, kind of like an on-off toggle switch on your phone for mute and unmute as well. Okay. I don't know if that's somebody trying to talk or.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Dave.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, Dr. Spivey reaching out to you guys. Very informative. We need to alert our galactic brothers and sisters on the possibilities that there is remedy and recourse.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's remedy and recourse as well, and those terms are thrown about a lot in Admiralty law, but to me, the biggest word that's missed in Admiralty, besides, salvage and remedy, is that there's cure out there as well. We need to be looking at cure. Put this puppy to rest and move on with our lives.
Well, what we have is 524 years of indoctrination of some perpetration. So it's not going to be voila, we're going to snap our fingers and it's going to disappear. We have to put the new millennium movement in order. And we have gathered up a plethora of light-minded and spirits, and we're working on that. We were alerted by one of our members to tune in, and you guys are on point.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we're working on it. I mean, every time someone goes on the air and starts telling their truth, it helps ignite other people as well. The trick is to getting over on the other side where it's safe, and then you can actually affect change and go out there without, having to worry, are they going to take my house, are they going to take my kids, are they going to take my car? Being able to walk out and say, okay, I've got everything I need. How do I repair my community? What's needed here? Because now you're walking around with someone who is essentially being given the same power as God. This is coming from their rules and their books, not me.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the ability to go out there and improve your community, and help people. Actually help people,
I agree. One of the indoctrinations that we have to start immediately is to remove fear. Fear is our number one element to remove us off the planet.
Well, I'll tell you something. Just be, when you have all of these traumatic events happening to you, they're going to take your house. The first thing you do is say, okay, I've got to write some things. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I've got to make phone calls. And so, yes, those are the first beginning steps of removing fear from your past. And then those days where you're going to be going to court, trying, giving it the first shot of standing up for yourself, and your stomach's not, and you make it through that day. And after a while, your confidence begins to kick back in, because remember, we've been told we're descendants of monkeys. You know what I mean? Or we came from a blob of mud. And so there's that insecurity that's in there. And once that insecurity subsides and you begin to kind of gain your spiritual momentum and you start to clean out your system and your third eye is in operation, you have a whole new level of fear that you're going to be contending with, because you're going to start to see that this whole world that you've been in this entire time has a lot of, shall we say, hidden characters in it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you get to a certain level in the game and you start to unlock these hidden characters, and you're really gonna start to see, hopefully, that a lot of the things that you thought were just everyday A, B, and C are not everyday A, B, and C, and you can see right through it.
What we have observed was the Wizard of Oz, that out of all of the characters, Toto was the one with courage. He took the opportunity to go behind that curtain.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we need to be. It's a process, and we're definitely willing to challenge that process. We can't be in insurrection, protest, and march. That season is complete. We need to regain the movement that is upon us right now.
Agreed.
So we would
this
definitely
level.
be in communication with you guys, and prayerfully all of the communication that's necessary we can acquire and start the process.
Very good. It was very nice talking to you, Dr. Spivey.
Spivey, peace and love.
I apologize, Spivey.
Not a problem.
Yeah,
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Oh, wow. Okay, I was sitting here pushing the star, and I wasn't hearing nothing. Okay. I just don't know where to begin. I'm diligently working on a response. I just had my second denial on my name change, and I've been picking brains and looking at some different options to go back in, and basically my plan of attack at this point is to do a writ of error, because my second denial was based upon an alleged amendment, and one of the things that the court said was that I did not vacate the last judgment. So I need to go in and do both of those. But I'm also going in.
Which judgment did he say that you didn't vacate? The previous denial, or was he talking about another one?
The previous denial, which was a final order.
Does it say that?
It was worded as a final order. But what I'm going to go back in is to do a writ and request for a statement of facts and findings of law for his determination, but also make a determination on the name. Whose name is it? Is it my name? If it isn't my name, then what connection do I have to it? Is it a trust? So there's some things I'm looking at, as well as denial of rights. But what I wanted to share is this, and I'm going to throw this out here first and foremost so that everybody is clear. Okay? I believe what I believe, and what you believe is what you believe. I could care less what you believe. Okay? I'm not saying this to be judgmental. I'm not saying it to cause conflict. I'm not saying it to get members. I'm not saying it to convert anybody. I'm not saying it for any particular reason except for one. Title 18, okay, 247 is a title that was used in this past month. And what 18 U.S.C. 2047 says, it's damage to religious property, obstruction of persons in the free exercise of religious beliefs. And it's very interesting. I looked up this code. It's very interesting what it says, and so basically, I'm looking at this as a way of going in. I'm not saying that the things that were being discussed were wrong. The fact that these people have done their little magical bull crap. Scripture emphatically tells us not to dabble in sorcery or any of that crap.
Yep.
So, for them, they are against my religious belief, okay? Just because I'm sitting over here and I got a little doll that looks like you and I'm poking holes on it, don't mean shit. That's what's in my mind. That's what I think. I don't know if there's probably some people got some me, but if they do, they don't, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Voodoo and this do and you do and hoodoo and all that shit and all the bullshit, the fantastic stuff that these people come up with, that they stole souls. We're working on what's called a bereshith. For y'all who don't speak Hebrew, bereshith is it's Hebrew, and it means in the beginning. It's another another word for the word Genesis. And basically what we're doing is we're working on this Bereshith patent. And in that it has scripture, and we're going to title it with this title 18. The first thing it says is that in the beginning Elohim created the heavens and the earth. Okay? Then it goes in, he said he created the earth to bring forth the seeds, so forth and so on. He goes into 1 and 26, and he said, let us make man in our image and our likeness, according to our likeness. Okay? And then he comes in, and he goes in, he formed man out of the ground and blew it into him the breath of life. He became a living soul. So that was given to us by our Heavenly Father. It goes on further in Genesis chapter 5. Shemuth, he tells us not to make any covenant with them or their mighty ones. Bryan, Deuteronomy chapter 11:24, I'll be placed the sole of your feet treads in the wilderness, Lebanon, and so forth, is your border. Okay? Bryan, Deuteronomy chapter 17:14, when you come to this land which Yahuwah has given to you, you shall possess it, dwell in it, and you shall set a sovereign over you, but he shall not be a foreigner. So all of this vote and all this stuff, we don't vote, okay? The Helium 24:1, and this is the crux of our patent here. Then Psalms 24:1, the earth belongs to Yahuwah, and all that fills it, the world and those who dwell in it. And he founded it upon the seas and upon the waters, and he established it. Okay? Haggai 2:8, and this is the last one.
Well, you said that he established it, though, right?
Say again?
You said that all who dwell in it, and he will establish it.
He says
right?
the world and those who dwell in it. Well, he founded it upon the seas and upon the waters. He does establish it. He establishes it. Okay.
Okay. So that tells me that someone who's doing the establishing has to do with admiralty law. Now, when you're talking about the sovereign, that I'm thinking that would be the legislature, because the legislature is sovereign over the Constitution.
But see, you're going in from a statutory and a legal standpoint. I'm going from a theological standpoint. You know what I'm saying? Because
yes, I do.
The legislators can't say that in the beginning they created the heaven and the earth. You see what I'm going with this?
Okay, I do, but I mean, again, right? We're speaking different dialects, okay? So, for instance, when we talk about the Father in the Bible, I had a conversation with the registrar of probate, and she kept telling me, we are the originator, we are the originator. So I went and I looked up originator, and it turned out that they are the Father.
But see, they can't be the Father because Yah said that the earth is his. It belongs to him, to Yahuwah. Yeah. And all that, the world and those who dwell in it.
Yeah.
And see, and I understand where you're coming from the statutory standpoint. But from a theological standpoint, my daughter, she's made in my likeness and in my image. Okay, I am her father. She looks like me. My other daughters, my children, they look like me. They don't look like the state of Pennsylvania.
Right. But we're talking about these images, these graven images.
Well, there are images, and actually, I just did a video on this for Shabbat that's posted on our website that talks about. Oh man, hold on, let me find this real quick because you're going to like this, T. Hold on a second. Let me find this. Give me 1 second. Get my scriptures. It should be right there. In 2 Samuel. I just taught on this on Shabbat. 2 Samuel chapter 6. Let me find the verse. Hold on. Let me go into my notes. It'll probably be in my notes.
Now, while you're looking through your notes, I'm going to throw something out there real quick. Now, whether we believe or not, that there's a spiritual element to this stuff, and whether we believe or not that there's dark magic going on with this stuff, just like we didn't believe when we were a kid that the name situation is the situation that it is. I'm going to tell you like this, whether you trust me and you know me well enough to trust me. This year alone, the spiritual things that I have had to deal with and encounter, things that are supposed to only be in TV and movies, that I'm encountering face to face, and I've got people with me that could sit there and tell you that we all saw the same thing, I can only tell you that there is dark things at work.
Exactly, and I'm not saying that they're not, T. I'm saying that I understand the spirituality of this, and that has to take the precedence. Okay, is understanding that this is spiritual. It says we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but spirits and principalities in high places. So I understand the demonicness of this. I understand that there are things that are going on, but Scripture also tells us that greater is He that's in me than he that's in the world. Well, what's in the world? Everything.
Right. So that would be. But see, now in that parallel paper world, that's your receiver. He who receiveth in me. Right? So aren't we always looking for a receiver so we can deliver these documents? And I'm just saying that because the story continues to loop itself repeatedly.
Right. And I think that, Scripture also said, let your yea be yea and your nay be nay. And I think that because of the dark magic and the black magic and the demonic spiritual stuff that's going on, they don't want to take our no as no. They don't want to take, listen, I don't want to be part of this shit. Leave me out of it. Period. It's my religious belief that I'm not to have no covenant with you. I'm not to deal with you. And granted, everybody is on their own level, believe, and so forth. But here it is. It's in verse 21. Now watch this. Listen to this, Kate. And they left their images there. They left their images there. Okay, that's what it says. It says, and they left their images there, and David and his men took them away. Now, the image...
Wait, David and his men did what?
They took them away, took the images away.
Okay.
All right? So,
yep. So,
okay, now give me a second. I got to switch into something else here because when I taught this is on our website. If anybody want to listen to that message, it's very, very powerful, very interesting. I thought about you, D, when I was teaching that lesson. What was that? Verse 21. Okay. Verse 21. Where the heck is it? Verse 21. I'm in the wrong one. That's why. Hold on. It must have been 5:21. It's in chapter 5, verse 21. All right. So, images. Okay. Images is the Hebrew word asab. All right. 1691. Now, I did this in the lesson. I had everything set up, so I had to go from scratch here. But I'm telling you, when I shared this with the people, it's very clear and it's very plain. Okay, and this one is not giving it to me, but it's image or idol. Okay, now in the other program I had, it listed the word similitude. Similitude. So what is similitude? It's similar to.
Right.
Okay. Their name is similar to our name.
Right.
Their driver's license, that picture looks similar to me. The birth certificate is a creation that's supposed to be similar to me. Okay? In fact,
now,
I know why.
Can I ask you, when you said David took the images away? Yes, okay. What else is around that story? Because when you say David took the images, that makes me automatically think of the county, because the sheriffs have the six-pointed star of David, which are the two houses. So it makes me...
well, basically, okay, David was fighting the Philistines, okay? And the Philistines came up and they spread themselves around and to inquire of the Most High. Okay, and so then it said that the Philistines self out in the land of in the land of Jerusalem.
Okay.
And it says, and David came to Baal Perazim. All right, and David smote them there and said, "Thou hast broken forth upon my enemies before me as the breach of waters." Therefore, he called the name of the place Baal Perazim. All right, and then it says, and then there they left their images, and David and his men, in this particular version here, it says, burnt them, lifted it up, buried, carried, took, carried them away. Okay, so basically they were at war. Okay, the Philistines were attacking David because David was just anointed king over all of Israel. Okay.
Ah, okay. So now it's funny because I've been looking at the Israel piece in the Bible, and I keep wanting to call it Israel because that is real name. That name that is real. Now, here's the thing. The county that I'm in, they won't let you go in there and record anything unless you have real property. So I can't just go skipping in there saying, "I'd like to record a declaration today, please." No, Do you own any real property in the county? No? Well, then see you later.
And
so
you know what?
And
I mean to cut you off, but you know what? And that's the thing. That's the problem that we're having. And all the people on this call here, you need to listen to me, okay? All right. You're filing in Lamar County, okay? And this is key. Now, I had a conversation with Bill as well as the head guy, the clerk of the court. Bill's not the boss, okay? So the bottom line is this. You had no property because when Bill was backed up, okay, because I'm in Georgia, I can go into any damn county and file on the land record, okay? Everybody who was from out of state, the reason you're filing into Lamar County is because of the liberal. And the only reason they're liberal is because it's a small, poor county. And you're bringing in hundreds, thousands of dollars into this county, so they're allowing you to file it. So we had filed in the county that's next to that, which is called Monroe County. And I did some documents for some people there, very big filing. And they let me in the first time. But the second time, they wouldn't let me in. And you know what they said? Do you have any property in Monroe County? No, you can't file here. You don't have any land, you don't have any property here in the county. You can't file. So she's on point with that. And that's one of the keys that we have to understand. And even with going back to, just thinking about going back into the birth county, okay? Because in actuality, a lot of people don't understand what the birth certificate is. What are we? We're land. Y'all said he formed us out of the dust of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? When you die, that's where we're going to put your butt back, in the earth.
Well, that's another story.
Yeah, exactly. That's a whole other story for another time.
All right. I don't want to spend too much. I'd like to try to get a couple other people in there because I have to go soon. But G,
okay.
You know, you can always call me, text me, find me. You know, I'm always out there floating around.
All right.
But thank you, and I love you.
You're welcome. Love you too.
Hey, Tryal. It's Sheila.
If I may.
Hello?
Hi. We had Sheila. Let me grab Sheila, and then whoever was next.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you doing?
How are you? Hey, Bryan. How's it going?
Good, good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, guys. And I had a couple of questions. You know, we've been kind of fast and furious over here in California, and you know, I got the amendment done, and I actually did it for my kids too. And on the form, my kids have now 2 pages to their birth certificate, and I did a name change in probate court here for myself, and so I changed their birth certificates to show my name, the mother, upper and lowercase, proper, and theirs as well. And then the reason for the change I put on there, and they printed it on the second page, was mother is an American national, a Californian, as decreed for California Superior Case Number, blah, blah, blah. And so that was re-registered, I think, November 10th or something. And I'm trying to kind of figure out if I'm done. And the thing that we've been thinking about doing now, it was something that was posted on Redemption, was to actually go back into probate and ask for, or, do a order for emancipation.
You can try that. The one that we have out in California, they told her that as long as she had the decree, she could go ahead and do the amendment, and she'll get the 2 certificates, and then you're done. So
I might be done.
Hmm?
So then I might be done.
You might be done, but here's my question: Is adoption of the name mandatory in California?
Yeah, good question.
Because Massachusetts, it is. They need the name change decree and then the adoption decree. Now, California, she didn't mention anything about the adoption decree in order to do an amendment. Massachusetts says we won't let you through the door unless there's an adoption. Now, I had that police officer from New Hampshire tell me a few years ago. He said, until you're fully adopted by the state, your process is incomplete.
Okay. So we also sent a package to the state registrar, and, we felt like we kind of got to the right place. I called and I just left her a message that I have a urgent private message regarding birth and death certificates, and she called me back, like within 15 or 30 minutes. And then so we sent her this big fat package, and we endorsed our birth certificates, the TODs and all that, and they sent everything back to us. They acknowledged that they got it, but they sent it all back and then referred us back to some of the, California Health Department, and that they only register birth and death and marriages. And so I'm wondering, do I need to request that she acknowledge the death of the all-cash person?
Try it.
Okay. And then my other question, or things that I'm pondering, is, endorsing these birth certificates. We did ones that, transfer on death to last, first, middle, and I'm really wondering if we need to endorse them, paid to the order of the United States of America without recourse. That's kind of my.
That's possible too.
Okay.
Under the registering, the endorsement was the pay on death or transfer on death. Now, my thinking is okay, if there's an adoption, which is acceptance, remember the certificate itself must be endorsed, accepted, and registered.
Right.
Right? So I'm wondering and I haven't gone into the adoption as far as the decree and all that stuff, so I'm not entirely sure, and we won't know until I'm done with that, or unless someone else goes out and does it and comes back and shares with us. Maybe they'll take it there.
Okay. Well,
but I know that.
Well, we did do the acceptance and the conveyance. We got that on the land records here. We that in the state, of course, but we're not in our birth counties, so I'm not sure about that. But anyway, that's kind of where we're at and where we're going next. I think we're going to go down to probate maybe tomorrow. There's an investigator, kind of administrator down there, and try to maybe talk to her. If not, file, the emancipation, or I guess the adoption. You can do emancipation and, I think it's liquidation of the estate. Removal of the guardian. And those are pretty, those are standard forms in probate.
I wonder if the removal of the guardian is the adoption.
Could be.
Because there's a difference between adoption and guardianship.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that sounds like it very well could be removal of the parents' patchery.
Mhm.
Right, that's where we're at, and it seems like I'm not sure. I don't really have any actual evidence of it, but the second page of from 3 adult kids, their birth certificate now, which is a permanent record, it says that the mother is an American national Californian, and they also
does it say birth certificate on it, or does it say record of birth or whatever?
Let me look. See, I was going to say something else. Oh, yeah. The other thing that was really interesting, you know how all the states have a 3-digit number,
Mhm.
and then the year you were born, and then the county number. Well, the second page of these amended birth certificates now, California is 104, but the second page of my kids' birth certificates now say 105, and it's a 4-digit number, which is the complete year that they were born, and then the county number matches up. So I thought that was kind of interesting too. So the second page, State of California, it's on bond paper, Department of Public Health, affidavit to amend a record. And then it's got a new registration date on it.
So now the certificate that you got back, is that completely different?
Yeah, it's an amendment. It's like it's not laid out the same way.
Okay, it's not even laid out the same way. So then it would be coming from a different book. If it's got different numbers on it, it would be coming out of a different book, which is interesting. Does it say?
So I'm wondering, what does 105 mean? Does 105 mean it's been amended? But it's got, my son was born in 1992. And on his birth certificate, it just says 10492 dash blah blah blah. Now it's 105 1992. Which I feel like that's an actual time.
Interesting.
I think I sent you a copy of it.
In email?
No, I texted it to you. I texted you a picture of it. I'll do it again.
Okay. I'll go take it through it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'll take a look at it. And did they give you any instructions after that, or did they say, hey, you're all set?
They didn't give me any instructions. They just sent them all back to me. I got 4 new 2-page birth certificates, basically.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then the registrar, she didn't want to talk to us, but, we asked her everything. She, the first time we called her, she said, be very, send me a letter, be very specific about what you want. So we went to town, and I think that we probably should have just asked her to seal the records or adopt us or, whatever that one thing is, or maybe it's the 3-time rule, and we need to keep going back.
Well, it could be the adoption because acceptance is key.
Right.
And if that's the one missing piece, I mean, give it a shot. Walk in there and see what happens.
Hey,
Yeah. I was digging around. I can't remember where I saw it. I was digging around, and it was saying about the adoption decree being necessary. So I think it was in one of the vital statistics manuals.
Okay. Yeah, the other thing that was interesting is when I was doing the amendment, I had a special person helping me. And so I filled out all the forms because it takes, 2 weeks. And I emailed them to her. And then she, we talked and we made the corrections. And then at one point there was, who's doing this? And I put mother/owner. And she said, mother was more stronger or something than owner, which I thought was kind of interesting too.
Interesting.
That doesn't apply to a lot of people. I just keep, since I signed these birth certificates for my kids, I feel compelled to try to undo it,
Right.
Anyway, okay. Well, that's all I had.
Yeah, I'll take a peek at it, and then we'll touch base this week because I have some other questions about California.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks, you guys.
All right, sweetie. I love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we had somebody else that was up right after Susie. No? Okay.
It was a man, I think.
Yeah, it was a gentleman trying to pipe in. You might have muted the board if you hit ***. You can unmute yourself. Had a few people, there was a little bit of noise coming through and stuff, so we had to mute a few lines out.
We can unmute the board.
All right, Dave.
There I go. Can you hear me?
How you doing? Yeah, how you doing?
Hey, DW, this is Marshall Schubert.
Oh, this is Bryan.
Oh, Bryan. Well,
Yeah.
y'all
Hey, how
sound
you
an
doing,
awful lot alike. So I dabble in the higher pHs as well.
Okay.
I thought, Bryan, you would know that. What that
Oh yeah, I know what you mean by it. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I make my own Ormus.
Oh, okay, cool.
So back to the pineal gland thing, and I want to switch back over to the Yahweh conversation you were having with the gentleman from Georgia. Distilled water and magnesium, which you know the Ormus has the magnesium in it. It also helps decalcify.
It's funny that you say that because that's the only water that we drink.
That's awesome. Awesome.
Cook with it. Yeah.
So the way I was hearing the gentleman read what he was saying about the Yahweh or maybe it was I don't know. There's a different way of pronouncing that more than once. It's talking about setting things up on Admiralty and on the sea. So was Yahweh taking claim for things being set up the way they are?
Well, I don't know. It wasn't necessarily taking a, well, it is taking a claim, but the thing is, people need to realize as well is that, when evil was kicked out of the heavens, it was given a domain, and this is the domain it was given, all right? And
Right.
I think its domain is best evidence through the system that we see, which would be the courts. And I've always said that the domain it was given was a paper domain, and it's going to go up in flames. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
that everything that's been done here has been done and set up to directly parallel what the Creator did. All right? Satan figured out his 1,000 years of thought. He figured out that he could not be greater than God, so the only thing he could do is imitate him and be the opposite of him. And so everything that is set up, like Pastor Penn was talking about the originating documents, okay? And that's exactly all that is. That is just a duplicate of what the Creator established, all right? He was the originator, and now through the system, you're seeing different things that directly parallel actually what the Creator did.
And I don't know if y'all can hear me, but
hold on a second.
it's more so the fact of us coming in and presenting a claim from in the beginning. If anybody had a higher claim than that, then bring your claim forward. So that if the county is saying that they own my land, then they need to bring a claim higher than in the beginning because, Yah created the heavens and the earth. And he's claiming that, and that's something that's a historical fact. Well, not historical fact, but historical evidence. The scripture is older than anything that they can claim. And also, in fact, I was thinking about that this morning, that if there is if they want to deny that, then they would have to go in and deny, I think it's Romans 13, where, we're supposed to submit to the authority. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Say that, that scripture's right, but this scripture's wrong. So that was basically the premise of what we were attempting to do.
Gotcha.
So I was kind of looking more at the root of the issue here. And so in the beginning, the land was separated from the waters, which to me says the jurisdictions were different. So then Yahweh came along and made it all water. Is that basically what I should take home from that?
No.
I'm sorry,
No, basically.
Well, you've got to be under the impression that Yahweh is the creator, but I feel like the Elohim is the creator and Yahweh came along later.
okay, it can't be, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay, and just give me a second. All right, if you go back into Genesis chapter 1, all right, and just give me a second here. I'm looking for it. Okay, verse 3, all right, and this is King James I'm reading out of. I don't agree with King James, but and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Okay, so that was the first time we actually see him say, "Let there be." Okay, so let there
but
be.
in some of the translations that have come out since, Yahweh didn't step on the scene until later. God actually referred to the Elohim.
Okay, well, let me listen. And I'm not here to split hairs with you, brother. This is what I do.
I'm trying to split a hair about if Yahweh was the one that set this whole thing up, and that's why it's being continued this whole time, as if Yahweh was somebody great and magnificent and turned out to be the booger himself.
Well, it's not, because do you understand what it is? Do you understand what Yahuwah? Do you understand what it means?
Well, I understand what the reverence that's supposed to be behind it. I guess what I'm saying is I'm more aggravated that I have to jump through all these hoops to get myself out of something that I didn't consent to in the first place.
Amen.
I agree with you 100%, brother. Me and you both. And that was the point that I was saying. But me, I'm going on it from the religious belief versus you're just, I don't consent.
Yeah, the meat suit to me isn't it as important as the spirit? And I understand that this dabbles in both sides of the spirit, but the blood is a physical thing. It's not a spiritual thing. And I'm just trying to sort this out in my head, because to me, I should just be able to say, no, I don't want anything to do with like Gandhi did in the whole sweet tea thing. No, just don't participate.
I mean that would be the basic idea of it, but here's the issue, you know, and I'm right along with you, and I feel the same exact way that you do. But you know, if you have an attorney standing in front of you, telling you your body and spirit are bound to that name, that changes everything. At least for me, it does. Okay?
Right.
And I said to him, I said, you know what? I said, well, you know, maybe I should start opening up my mouth. And he says, yeah, who are you going to tell? And I sat there and I said, you know what? That's a damn good question. Who am I going to tell? And then I thought about it. I said, you know, I'm going to tell everybody who's willing to listen, because this is not just a game of arrest you and take your stuff or arrest you and take your kids. This is something different. Now, when it comes down to the blood being a sacred fluid that your heart pumps out, okay? And your heart, there's an energy center behind your heart. It's called the heart chakra. You have power points in your entire body.
Yeah, I'm aware of the chakras.
Right. So when you have fear, it comes out of your solar plexus. If you have anxiety, it's locked in your solar plexus, okay? Most people have that area. All of their power points are pushed into the solar plexus or lower. Okay, which are those uncontrollable sexual drives that people, you know, have a tough time dealing with, because all of your power points are pushed to the lower function survival levels. You know, and so when we discuss meditation and silver, we're talking about starting from the top and lighting the rest of them up. Because I'm going to tell you something, okay? I've encountered entities, people, if you want to call them that, whatever you want to call them. And when my body has a high level of silver, they move away from me. Or they have a tough time in my presence. And I'm not saying that because I'm fancy and I'm awesome and blah, 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 all these other things and bragging about myself. I'm saying that because the energy that I give off is almost toxic to some people, okay, who function at those lower levels. And they have a difficult time keeping themselves together if they're too close to me.
I guess, maybe there's not one magic step. I know there's a lot of people taking this from a lot of different angles. And, and to me, this is all really kind of new to me, and it seems more frustrating than it does anything else. And I guess that's the lower plexus, screaming at me. But still, it just seems so frustrating to try to sort this out. You don't even know if what you're going to do is going to make any difference. And I guess that's why, just to me, that seems so overwhelming. And I don't have a very wide vocabulary of all this stuff. You guys probably know more about it than I do, obviously, because to me, I get overwhelmed. And I guess that'll subside after the more I learn.
Okay, so here's my question then. What are you good at? What are your favorite things?
As far as what I'm good at is search and rescue, construction work.
Okay.
Trying to hear. I don't know. I really can't answer that on a physical level.
Well, you did. You did, because you're telling me, cause let's say for construction, right? If you need to build a structure, you need what? A strong foundation. You need a lot or a location, okay? You need the design. You need the blueprint. You need the tools. You need the materials. You need the building needs to be
but my house has been standing for 46 years, and now
but what
I've got to tear it down.
Okay, but what I'm saying is all of the terms that I just used are the same terms that they use.
Right.
You need a lot. You need a blueprint. You need instructions. You need tools. You need to make sure the building is secure. Right? So there's nothing so there's nothing that I know that you don't know. You just know it the way you know it, and I know it the way I know it.
That makes sense. I just got to look at it with different eyes.
Yeah, that's all. Or just apply what you know to their recipe.
Well, thank you both very much.
My pleasure.
Yeah, that is so absolutely true, Tryal. It is applying the things we know. Like I said earlier, trying to explain things to people that is maybe beyond them really being able to comprehend, use things that would be similar that they would be able to understand, like the similes and parables and metaphors. And that's what people need to do in their own life when it comes to comprehending what's really going on and what's happened,
Yeah, I got someone online. His name is Jerome, and he got his name changed on, and he wants to jump in and talk about his experience.
Sure.
Greetings, everyone. How you doing?
Hey,
Chris?
Jerome. How you doing?
I'm spectacular. You?
Wonderful.
Thank you for the opportunity to share this. Now, before I tell you what happened, I need to give you a little bit of background. And I've been through a lot of different procedures, processes, studying this, studying that for years. Okay? Even to the point that, when successes took place, it was a little difficult to make a determination on which one of these things I've done to secure myself was effective. So this scenario, me and my son, we went and did a name change. All right, now we're in the Texas area, so we did our name change. Now he hasn't done anything else. Okay, so you're dealing with two different dynamics. One, the only thing he actually done was through his birth certificate authentication, and that was it, and his name change. So we get to court, and there's who I'm thinking is the bailiff. He said, he calls my name out. Sir, your name, you're not doing a name change. These are exactly the same thing. And I was like, no, there's a difference. Do you see it? He's like, yeah, one is in all capital letters and the other one is uppercase, lowercase. So, I listen a lot to Sister Tryal, and she made this statement that I think was kind of profound when she explained it. So I was looking for the opportunity to use it. I said, sir, nobody's name is in all capital letters name. Okay? And this guy changed colors. He started smiling and jumping up, and he ran out and got the judge. The judge came back in, and they ended up calling my son first. I was like, oh crap. You know, I tried my best to prep him and everything, but everything went great. The judge asked him a couple questions, shook his hand, and said, congratulations. He said, now take this over there to the sheriff. So then I went up there. He asked me the same questions, but one of the questions was, were you trying to avoid any criminal action? I said, no. He said, I know you're not. And he shook my hand and he said, congratulations. Okay. He had told me to take my paperwork over there to the sheriff, which I did. So I ended up leaving to go out of town, and I left the car with my son. And on my way to my destination, my son calls me. He's like, Dad, I got pulled over. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. I was like, well, what happened? Now, mind you, my son is just moving out to Texas with me. He had a Georgia driver's license, and he had an Arizona ID. Okay? He gave both of them to the cop because, you know, he's totally new to a lot of this. And most of y'all know what happens, you know, if you're giving them out-of-state IDs, especially if you have them in those scenarios. So what allegedly happened is he did an illegal U-turn. And when the cop came back, the cop was shaking his hand. He was like, oh, sir, everything is all good. You know, you have a great day. Okay? Now, prior to that event, what happened to me, I haven't had a driver's license in years because I was just waiting for the opportunity. Right? Now, at this particular time, I had only filed a petition. I had not had the name change decree yet. Yeah, I only filed a petition. Well, I get pulled over. I have an out-of-state ID. I've been in this area for over a year. The cop shakes my hand and tells me to have a good evening, and I stayed in the car and went home that night. Okay? So I just wanted to share that. A lot of the complicated situations and processes a lot of people have been doing is, in my opinion, has been leading us astray. The things that are most successful are those things that are real simple. And this was a very simple process. Tryal, thank you for sharing it with us. I yield the floor.
My pleasure. Thank you for calling in.
Oh, great info. It's great to hear people call in and give their experiences and their stories regarding what they've done. It's awesome to hear.
Can I get his contact info?
Say it again?
Can I get his email address, his contact info, the guy that's from Georgia? Or in Georgia, rather, or on Georgia?
Yeah.
The gentleman that was just talking?
Yes.
The gentleman that was just talking is not in Georgia. He's in, Ron, did you want to share information with him or somehow swap info or something?
I'm in Texas.
Hey, Tryal. Did you have any contact info, Jerome, if you want to share? Yes or no? I don't know. Are you on Facebook?
You can get in contact with me through Tryal, if that's okay with you, Tryal.
That's fine. You want me to keep? That's fine.
It's a public forum. I need everybody
I hear you.
ringing the phone, you know.
I hear you.
And Jerome, if you want to, I hear somebody's going cuckoo there. Jerome, if you want to join Tactical Sovereignty, I don't know if you're a member of the group or not. They're on Facebook, but you're welcome to join there, and people can chit-chat back and forth with you if they want.
Name of it?
Tactical Sovereignty.
Tactical. Okay. I'll look for that.
Yeah, it's Tactical Sovereignty. Sovereignty is in brackets, and then administrating the estate.
I'll look for it.
All right, Jerome. Thanks. Appreciate you calling in. Well, we're just after the 8 o'clock hour. I don't know if there's anybody else out there that had a question or anything for Tryal. I know she's got stuff going on. Yes, how are you doing?
Hi.
Hey, this is David.
Hi, David.
How are you doing, David?
I am doing well. Hey, Tryal, did you hear what that gentleman Jerome said?
Which part?
The step right after the judge.
When he got pulled over?
Nope. Take the name change to the sheriff.
Yes.
the sheriff is also the coroner.
That's correct.
Could that possibly be the switch right there?
Well, the sheriff would be in the county.
Right, but what I'm saying is delivering a copy of the name change or the decree to the sheriff.
Jerome, are you there?
Pardon me, I had to set the phone down. What was your question or inquiry?
When you took the decree over to the sheriff, what did he do with it?
He took it down there and recorded it in the county.
Okay.
He himself did. And another note, I thought it was the bailiff when I first came in, but that was my first time actually seeing the sheriff himself, the appointed sheriff in that particular venue.
Was he dressed in a three-piece suit?
No,
or was he in costume?
He was in costume with a six-pointed star, though. I did look for that.
There's that star, David. Okay.
Yep. Did I address everything everyone had? Pardon me.
Yeah, I believe so.
Awesome. I have to place the phone down again, but I'm listening in.
We put ours here on the record, but we didn't have the sheriff do it.
Oh, yeah, the sheriff actually took ours and took it in there, and then we had to go and get the certified copy on there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I had to take mine over to the name change clerk, and she's the one who put she put the gold seal on it. And she said, now you have to go give notice.
Okay.
Now,
That's all I wanted to know.
Sure. I think it's on the second slide, where there's a one of the codes. It shows that registration is noticed.
Right. Yeah.
So I guess the trick is to get in there in the registration. Now you guys have the double certificate, so I'm curious. When I spoke with the vital statistics woman, she said that the probate court communicates with them twice a year and sends them all the name changes and all the information twice a year.
Well, there's another form out here. It's called an adjudication of parentage. And that apparently seals the record. And what I'm thinking, the way we did the name change by doing the name change and then doing supplement documentation with it as far as affidavit signed by mom and dad and blah, 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 et cetera, more paperwork, as allegations that were basically approved, even though the judge probably didn't get to read it all or whatever, but it's there and it's on the record. So I'm wondering if sliding it in and having it sealed that way might finish that off.
Now, this is in the birth counties? The registry that you guys are going to is in the birth counties?
We've been talking to both the birth counties and the state. Now, our first shot, we sent it to the state, and we talked to her on the phone, and she was like, I'm not going to do this, this, and accept her oath for the second time, and she basically said, I'm not going to me. So, the birth county is obviously ideal, and maybe taking it to the birth county sheriff, because I've already got it recorded here, but in my case, just walking it down there and going, look, I don't know exactly what the problem is, but, so.
I mean, there may be that final step in there. They may require the adoption.
Right. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
I love you, David.
Oh, I love you too, sweetie.
I love everybody.
Awesome. So, do we have anybody else in line here in queue?
Good evening.
How are you doing?
Hey, how you doing? This is Louis from New York.
Hey,
Louis.
Yeah, hi. How's everybody doing this evening?
Good. What's up?
Hey. This is the question for the name change. Now, is this the exact same thing as an assumed name, or what? Like, I'm a little confused.
No. This is a claiming of that name on your certificate.
Right. Now, can the same thing be done in New York, or because I know each state probably has their, like little set rules, like when you file records or if you want to like record something, they have each state has their laws like on how to do certain paperwork or whatever. My question is that would it be the same thing for New York? Because I was trying to look for a certificate of live birth. And in New York, they don't, like in some other states, they call it that, but in New York, they don't really call it that. It's either a long form or like maybe like birth record or something like that. So it's like.
So you're looking for the blue one?
It's supposed to be a blue copy? That's the one that I'm supposed to get?
It'll be on, blue security paper, the blue stone in the Bible.
Right. And then in order for me to do the name change process, I would have to go to my county's office, my birth county, and do what?
So what you're going to do is you're going to look up your birth county, and you're going to look up name change in whatever county.
Right.
And then all of the instructions will come up, and the forms most likely will come up. And, a lot of us it's Christmas, and it's tough, so a lot of these counties have waivers, fee waivers. So they'll do it without, if you fall into that category, they'll do it without you having to pay. But every county has the name change. If it's not in the county, in some places it's Superior, in some places it's district, but it's there and it's available.
And the name, the way it's set in the beginning, is all capitals, and when you change, you would have to change it back to the regular Christian form, correct?
Correct.
All right. Yeah, I was a little confused, but now I got it already. I do appreciate it. I thank you a lot.
My pleasure.
And also, if people are going into court and this administrator and this judge may want to see, well, do you have any proof of your name being used wrong, of the wrong name being used? And, everybody gets plenty of mail, whether it's your electric bill or what have you, that comes to you in all caps. So you might want to take 2 or 3 copies of something like that with you as well to show why it is, you want to change.
Would a utility bill be all right?
Sure.
All right. Now, quick question. If someone is disabled and they're like on disability, would any of this have a impact on it? Because I know you could act and you could have 2 different hats. You could act, as a living man, and you could take control of your corporation, of your trust, because it is yours under your name. You know what I'm saying? Now, when you put a lien on it via the UCC, from what I've heard, you could put everything. I've known people that, you could anything under the sky you could put underneath there. And what I wanted to know if I was on Social Security, because I've spoken to Social Security before too, and I was trying to actually discharge a debt against them. And I was kind of scared of doing it though. But I did it, but the process was kind of wrong until I really found out what the process was. And with that said, I didn't get in trouble or anything. They were just trying to find out what I was trying to do. The only thing is that, if you're on a disability, would you be able to do this, like with the Secretary of State or anybody, say, like, hey, look, listen, you're on contract with us or whatever the case is, and you probably can't do this, or, would I be able to get in trouble, or?
I would look up disabled vessel, and I would study that.
Okay, disabled vessel.
Disabled vessel, yes, because you're dealing with maritime.
Okay, yeah, because we're under commercial law, we're under emergency powers.
Right,
well,
and I want to say on top of that, as well as we know that there's been a lot of word trickery used on us, and people that are receiving stuff from, SSA or whatever, they keep telling us that, your benefits. Well, you know what? These are not benefits. These are obligations of Social Security, all right?
Right.
That's what they're technically listed as, is obligations. So I don't think you throwing away that hat of person does anything to change what their obligations are.
Right. Well, once again, I thank you. I do appreciate that.
All right.
Here's
Did we have?
I found something really quickly under disabled vessel, and I want to say this is Canada, so I don't know if this applies to everyone, or you might be able to find the equivalent locally. But it says, if a disabled vessel requesting assistance in a non-distressed, sorry, hang on a second. In a non-distress or non-potential distress situation, refuses commercial or private assistance when available, this shall be considered as a cancellation of the initial request for assistance. The master of the disabled vessel is to be notified accordingly. I don't know if that helps or not, but disabled vessel I think is very important.
Right. And you found that on the web? I could just Google disabled vessel and that would pop up?
Yeah.
Okay. And what, your jurisdiction is in Canada? Is that where you're located at?
No, I just Googled this, just looking for definitions and examples. I didn't do a deep dig, but, you can probably do some deep digging. I know that we have to wrap up the call, and really quickly before we go, I wanted to give out the website that's got name change information, and it's it's NOALLCAPS00.WIXSITE.com, and you can go here and you can take a peek. It's not super complex. There's name change 1, 2, and 3 webinars available, and there's also the slides available on that. And then there's also a tab on there under entertainment, where you can find some of the interesting quotes and examples from some of these politicians. One of the congresswomen talking about the birth certificate authenticated, what to do with it. She's got a biblical rant that she goes on. And then also at the bottom of it, there's the entire movie They Live, that you can check that out if you haven't seen that yet. I recommend that people take a look at the movie.
Love that movie.
Yeah, so that whole thing is on there. Just click and you can sit there and watch it. A very important movie. And if anyone needs me, mostly, the majority of you know where to find me. You can also email me at noallcap00@gmail.com, and either myself or my lovely Darla will help you guys out with anything that you need.
Do you have a Facebook?
I do. You can find me in Tactical Sovereignty. I'm floating around in there.
All right.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll try and make sure and get that website posted back up into Tactical as well again this evening for people to check out.
Cool. And like I said, the slides, they're there. Click them, flip through them. There's definitions in there. There's biblical scripture that is compatible with the definitions, the instructions, and so on and so forth. So you can check those out if you're having trouble with definitions and terminology. It's all in there.
And that's a very important thing for people to do, is be able to check out definitions of things that are used, because the definitions that we think exist are not the same definitions that the system is using.
Mm-hmm.
It's all part of that kind of trying to mirror the image of what we think is,
Yes.
It's part of the big confusion. Yeah, I just posted that website back up into Tactical. It's no all caps 00.wixsite.com. People.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Hi. I'm out of Virginia, and I had an order for a change of name, and I made a mistake. My name is changed to the lowercase, all lowercase. And the clerk of the court, they indicated that they shall forthwith spread this order upon the current deed book, indexing the order in both the old and new, under the new names. But also they checked off this change of name is granted incident to a divorce that the clerk shall not transmit any of the copy of this order to the Register of Vital Records or to the Central Criminal Record Exchange. So my question is, I just need to go back and amend this decree?
So it's all lowercase, even the first letter of each name?
Yeah, I changed it all to lowercase.
Why?
Because I didn't want it to be all caps. I didn't have the full knowledge like what I have obtained now.
Okay. My thinking is this. You can go back to the county and you can say, I made a mistake, because everyone's entitled to make a mistake, and ask them to issue the decree the way that you need it, which is the upper lower. If they won't do it, then you're going to have to file a new petition.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. The name change has to be exactly the upper lower case name, because that's the name that the city has, or the county, or whomever. There's multiple records of that name, and that's the one that holds all the rights. Okay. Folks are looking at the capitis, diminutia, maxima, media, and minima, okay? All caps, we know that that's maxima, but the media, people think is the upper lower. It's not. The media would be uppercase J, lowercase O-H-N, and then the last name is capital D, capital O, capital E. So one of those names, be it first or last, is going to be in all capital, while the other one is in upper lower. That's media. Minima is the upper lower all the way across. It's not all lower, and people think it's all lower. And some folks are talking about the things when they go into pure equity and everything is in all lower. We understand that. We do. That's handwritten by a judge. That's different. We're going to probate, and we're grabbing this name that's flying around that everyone is trying to attack.
So what I need to do is retract, go back, and do a new one. Amend it.
See if they will change what they gave you, the name that they gave you. See if they'll change and say, hey, I made a mistake. It's actually supposed to be an upper lower, just like this piece of proof I have right here, the certificate.
Okay.
If they, and try to be a little pushy about it. And then if they say, no, I'm sorry, you have to file a new petition, then you're going to have to file a new petition.
Okay.
Yeah. This is the piece of the Minnesota Rule 220 that everyone is looking for. They're looking for this memorial. And the memorial is equivalent to the petition. They're looking for this petition. That whole Minnesota Rule 220 is completely encrypted. You would have to take every single word and every single piece of punctuation and put it back together to get what they're trying to tell you.
Okay.
Good luck.
Thank you.
But see if they'll fix it. Just say, hey, I'm entitled to make a mistake. Hey, damn, can you fix this for me? I need it to be the same name on my certificate. I'm trying to, protect my property here.
Okay.
Okay.
So if I show proof that I have an authenticated birth certificate, that should suffice?
Yeah. That's what you're changing it to. That's the proof that is the name that you're getting a petition on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I also want to mention to everybody that this call and past calls that we've done and calls with Tim Dameron are all archived on lawfulamerica.solutions. That's lawfulamerica.solutions. And also, if you go there on, I believe, the top left-hand side, you'll see we just opened up Lawful Book tonight, or actually this afternoon. DW got it opened up. And Lawful Book is kind of a little replica of Facebook. only it's a secure site where everybody can kind of chit-chat over these comments and ideas and things they've done, things that work, things that don't work, and we can converse with each other there. Lawful America is run actually through the site Lawful America Solutions, and Lawful Book then, because of that, is actually being run through a server that is outside of the United States. So there's kind of an extra little wall there in that area as well. Yeah.
Okay.
And like I mentioned earlier here, is I've had a couple people message me and ask, the webinar from Tryal is posted up on Tactical Sovereignty. I just reposted it back up. So
on the website?
Somebody else? Yes, your webinars, your site for it, yes.
Cool.
Can I jump back in for a second?
Sure.
I was thinking about my adoption decree. I'm wondering, can I just go in and, on my adoption decree and go in there and I guess I need to figure out what I need to pose it as an amendment or correction to the decree, because their name that they have is all uppercase.
You're saying to try to register it in all caps?
No. Well, here's the thing. I got back 2 of my service marks, and basically I had a discussion with this somebody offline with somebody. Basically, what they have done, they gave the service marks, but of course, everything is in all caps, and we know that they're going to do that no matter what. But the other thing is that they have switched the addresses as well. They have zip codes and all kind of crazy stuff in there, which is on the application. Application said CO and care of this address, zip code accepted or exempt, but they put a zip code in there and everything, and they have everything in all caps. Address, name, trademark, or service mark, all 9 yards. So what I'm thinking is going back in and say what the guy said from Texas, and I think I'm going to do that for my other name change as well. Go in there and tell them, say, hey, nobody's name is in all caps, see what happens. But if I could get them to say, I can say the same thing on the adoption decree as well, and see if I can get that changed, because on there it has key points, me being a Hera, and my father and mother claiming me, my father and mother being married, all of these are all pluses. So, idea, thought.
I mean, you definitely have some tools. It just looks like this judge keeps blocking you for whatever reason.
Well, these are 2 different judges. These are 2 different judges, and we're dealing with 2 different names and 2 different situations.
The judge keeps blocking you for whatever reason. I'm sorry, I can hear the echo. You know what? Vital statistics in Pennsylvania says that, they say that all of those records are sealed, right?
Yes.
So I'm wondering if you go directly to them and say, listen, I need you guys to do an amendment, and see what they say. Did they give you any feedback? I know that they said that you need a court order to access those files.
Right.
And, I mean, I'm wondering if you went to the adoption agency and was like, hey, listen, I've got this decree here, this adoption decree, and I want to go about formally accepting it. How do I do that? Do I do that with you?
Well, this came from the court because my parents filed a petition with the court directly.
Right.
It wasn't through an agency. My
know.
mother married.
When I said adoption agency, I was being facetious. I'm talking about whatever adoption office is in that county.
Okay, so you're saying go into family court?
Yeah, try it.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Going to them and I guess saying that, hey, I need to make a correction on the decree because. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna try that. And I'm gonna try to get that out. I'm gonna try to get that out in the mail tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, and then I'll figure out the other one. Because the other thing is this is, once again, you know, I'm thinking, because here's a strange thing. The last time I got a copy of my birth certificate, and this is crazy as hell, I sent ID in one name, but they sent back a birth certificate in another name, in the other name.
Sure.
Very interesting. Because on the actual birth certificate, it says my adopted last name, and on the receipt with the red tracking number, it says my birth name.
I would think that they have all of the records and everything back there.
They do. Well, see, here's what happened. My birth name, okay, because I got a letter from the adoption court stating what my birth name was. Okay, so my mother gave me two birth certificates, one in one name and one in the other name. So basically, it kind of worked out for me in some instances, because when I needed to make the great escape, I went from one name to the other, and I already had Social Security numbers and everything already set up, because apparently they didn't transfer whatever from the birth to the adopted name. They just did a different number. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why. I didn't do it, so I can't tell you. But I ended up submitting a baptismal record from 1968 into vital statistics, and they changed it back to the birth name.
You might have to make an appointment and sit down with some of the folks in there. Do you have the manual, the vital statistics manual?
I do. Well, no, I don't have the manual. I have the vital stat law, which should be posted in our group, and I think it might be posted in a couple groups. But I think that the vital stat law would be, I guess, where you would find whatever we would need to do, and I guess that's what I need to go look through. Give me a second.
Well, you know what I'll do, because I know that they need to get off.
Okay.
I will send it to you. Okay. The one that I'm reading from, where it shows that they matched the births with the deaths and then marked everybody dead. I'll send you that one.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds like a
and, that might help you navigate through that.
All right, because I do have it pulled up now. It talks about birth registrations, Article 4, Article 4A, missing children registration, death and fetal death registrations, change of civil status. Ooh. Okay. Records, subsequent registration, penalties, appeals. So yeah, that's basically it. So I'll look at that. Send me that other one, and I guess I have to put the two together and see what we can come up with, and go from there.
All right, okay. Awesome. And Tryal, if you want to post that as well in the tactical, I think that would be a good read for everybody. I might even want to go back through that again.
Yeah,
what's that?
I'll get that over to you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, both of them. Yeah, both of them would be good.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's also an organization that they're connected with, and it's called EVE, EVVE. I said, that's cute.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. So, all right, guys.
All right, guys. Took the words right out of my mouth.
All right, you go.
Oh, we appreciate having you on here, Tryal, and love to have you back again sometime.
I would be honored to come back. No problem. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys.
All right, absolutely. Well, we're going to wrap this up, and like I've told everybody many times, the biggest thing I think people really need to come to terms with and realize is who you truly are, where you're from, where you are, you know, those are the things that have been hidden. Those are the things that will unlock a lot of answers to you when you discover those items. Gatekeeper, are you around? Or D, are you around? I'm here. Hey.
May I? May I?
All right, I'm around. All right. Thanks for everybody.
Hello?
Yes.
May I?
Well, give us a quick
No,
comment.
we are closing. We can wait until next time.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, sir, I am.
I was just curious. Could I get that woman's
Thought I just said
name?
we were closing.
Yeah, that's Tryal Hera. Tryal Hera.
I have a pen, and I'd like to write that down.
Okay.
Is there some way to contact her? Tryal?
Yeah, you can look. Tryal, Tryal.
Tryal. Excuse me.
You can email me.
Harris?
Yeah, just send an email to noallcap00@gmail.com.
No, wait a minute. All cap?
Oh my
'Cause I didn't even get,
Oh my God.
I didn't get the last name. My
all right.
name?
What's your name? Yeah. What's your name?
All right,
Sir,
we're
what's your name? Okay.
Come on. Anyway,
Don't worry about
Thank God.
all right. Stop there, guys.
Thanks for the call. It's 45 minutes past if they wanted to go. They only keep you 2 hours.
All right.
Good night, guys.
Have a good night, everybody. Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Good night. All right, bye-bye.